don't think about it for too long and just super kick everyone into the fucking ground. Alright, so if you've ever thought about getting into Resident Evil, but then immediately went back on that icky feeling because there are like a million games, weird timelines, tank controls, fixed cameras, and just a lot of overwhelming factors, then this video is definitely something that might be beneficial to anyone flirting with the idea of starting this franchise for the first time. And with Requiem only a few weeks away, there's no better time to do something about it. I started my own journey only a few months ago after decades of completely ignoring what this series had to offer, despite being a massive horror survival fan. And motherfucker, I have waited too damn long.
Man blood.
Yes, there's the elephant in the room with Resident Evils of, wow, this mansion village police station is so atmospheric. And by Act 3, it's always, yes, the mandatory underground evil lab with fluorescent lights and a million buttons for me to push before the last boss fight. But I love these stories, and if you've made it this far without clicking on an Ackman video that's clearly being recommended on the side right now, then I guess you better stick around and at least decide if this is the best way to jump in for you.
Keep turning, it's working!
No sh**. Oh.
No!
Oh. There's always a bigger fish. The obvious homework would be to start with playing every single game in the series before Requiem, but let's be real, not a single one of us has enough time in the next few weeks to pull that off. Maybe some veterans who are familiar with the puzzles and sequences of events, but for someone who is newer to the Resident Evil world, it's probably going to take a few games before you get into the sauce. I had dozens of friends giving me playthrough options, which games I could skip or what was absolutely necessary, and don't even get me started on the CGI movies because they all meant well, but it was really overwhelming to the point I didn't even want to start. So finding my own way just honestly felt best. Maybe you think it's a better idea to start with Biohazard and Village since these newer titles are made in a similar design philosophy with RE9, and for some are considered to be a soft reboot of the games. But having played a handful of the older ones first before getting into the new titles, I'm not sure I would have appreciated them as much if they were my first introduction. They're really fun games, flawed, and truly a next generational looking experience, but they play so differently compared to what started everything. That's really what forced me to write this video in the first place, and curate this plea of a list from a new fan. And this list is the remakes because I honestly think that's the best place to start as a new player. Use an emulator to get a taste of the originals if that's something that feels fun to you, but I want to talk about a realistic accessibility when it comes to gaming in a market where retro games are absurdly priced. Unless you play on PC, then Steam does kind of have you covered on most of the Resident Evil games. But the remakes feel like the best place to dip your toe and see if the world of Resident Evil is right for you, not just because they're good games, but because together they quietly teach you everything that Resident Evil is and everything it's become.
You need to go. Now.
RE2 Remake is where the series really works its magic on new players, or at least it did for me. And the showcase of Capcom's Reach for the Moon engine is on full display.
You sure this is the right way?
Unfortunately.
Beautiful cutscenes and overall experience that I had when playing this. It's probably too high a task these days, but I really wish we still lived in a time where every developer had their own quirky little game engine. Everything always being tied to the Unreal Engine 5 look really makes the quality of this and all the remake games stand out to me. They've been using it since 7 and they're still building 9 with the same tools. Having gone this direction, all these recent games feel really connected visually in a way that most series kind of lack today. I love how slow this game feels at first. It doesn't lore dump into oblivion and never really assumes you know anything, which is perfect for someone like me who was a new player. It only focuses on getting you into the chaos as fast as possible and trusts you to figure things out the same way the characters do. Sure, there's a lot of advantages to having the story beats of the first game and Zero in your mind, but I didn't really feel like fighting giant scorpions was the first impression I needed. What makes RE2 Remake so important is that it teaches you restraint, because Christ, coming from the world of Silent Hill, did I have to quickly learn to make a better management system for dealing with my inventory. Very quickly you learn that you can't kill everything, and honestly you should just run like the little bitch that you are as often as possible. Sometimes the correct move is just leaving the room. Unless that next room is filled with even more death, then you're f***ed. and that mindset is the core of Resident Evil even later on in the more action-heavy titles. The reveal of Mr. X, even from someone who didn't know much about this series beyond the Paul W. Anderson movies, was understood almost immediately. Also, side tangent, how did this dude make Event Horizon and then only deliver stinker after stinker for the rest of his career? It's baffling.
Hope I don't have to write a report on this.
I'd somehow absorbed Mr. X through pop culture in a way I didn't realize until the moment he started hunting me for the first time. I've heard from other fans of this series his character doesn't feel quite as prominent in the original, but the moment he enters the remake, it teaches you that tension doesn't come from jump scares, it's coming from the pressure of making decisions while stressed. And bitch was I stressing. Every time you're stuck in a puzzle or backtracking for the 17th time down that terrifying liquor-filled hallway, there he is waiting to throw you off and make you bricks on your way back to the main area of Raccoon Station. Just hearing his footsteps makes me forget how to count. No joke, the first time I saw him enter the main lobby, something I had only presumed to be a safe HUD section of the game made me realize how terrifying and effective this entry was. And the dual narrative that informs your second playthrough from the perspective of Claire really makes the replayability of this title so easy for me to recommend. Plus, her story is just as good as Leon's, if not better. Also, we get the first glimpse of the iconic character Ada Wong and the entangled destiny that she shares with Leon. And just for good measure, can we get a goddamn in the comments real quick, because damn.
I can't get it out.
Her character in later games is kind of used as basic, if not clunky, plot devices more than truly a fully formed character.
You up for this?
Think I could fit it in my schedule.
But I'll allow it because she's badass and everything she does always heightens the moment and leaves the player wanting more. If RE9 is going to continue Capcom's more modern lean back into horror, then the use of this as its location 30 years later is the foundation you'll need to understand and really appreciate it. It's my favorite on the list, and I'm determined to beat the original RE2 just to truly experience everything this title did for the industry and for the franchise. It's hard to sustain unpredictability, but this game, for all its tropes and goofy one-liners, seems to stick the landing. The total playtime for playing both Leon and Claire's story should take anywhere between 15 to 20 hours to complete. RE2 Remake teaches you patience, awareness, and the management of fear in a way I'm not sure any game has ever done for me. At a certain point with a horror game, I find myself getting numb to the atmosphere, leaning into the world and becoming familiar with what it can do to me. But RE2 Remake never let me go. It never let me relax. And I love it for doing that. Without this game and knowing who Leon, the rookie, was from the start, I really don't know if you'll care who he is 30 years later. If there's one you might be able to skip on this list, it's Resident Evil 3 Remake, which is a shame considering how beloved the original Nemesis game is held. But it doesn't follow crucial characters in the new games, at least not at the writing of this video, and it chronologically runs somewhat parallel to RE2 in the timeline as far as massive world-changing events are concerned. This is the game people argue about endlessly, and really for good reason, with a lot of the shortcut choices Capcom took. But for new players, it actually might still serve a really important role. Plus, coming right off of RE2 Remake, it was still a lot of fun for me. I love Jill and really want to get back and experience RE1 now to fully understand her character at some point because of this game. RE3 is where Resident Evil starts pushing you forward instead of locking you in one place. It's a lot more linear, like it honestly feels like a sprinting running simulator for a majority of the time. There's a bit of backtracking at the hospital and other familiar settings, but it feels recycled in a way that I'm sure the original doesn't exactly share. The things that I hated at the time or were annoyed by when playing RE2 Remake, I found only after playing this game did I really appreciate and almost miss those moments now that they were gone. Nemesis isn't a subtle, slow-moving bag in a top hat. He's aggressive, loud, comically fast, and more like something you would fight near the end of RE6. However, the dodging and movement in this game does feel really good, and all of that becomes second nature quite quickly. It's less about solving intricate puzzles and more about staying alive and shooting rocket launchers.
Right, let's do this.
Because even the puzzles you will have to solve seem somewhat easy after playing RE2. Some of them will almost be the same, But if you're on the fence about this one, I will say at the very least, it's really easy and super short, which makes it for me a must play to see the end of Raccoon City from Jill and Carlos's perspective. It closes the book on the classic Outbreak era and pushes the series forward towards something bigger and for some people, messier. There's something really simple about these two games, even when this one dips into comically cartoony boss fights. That classic zombie fear is what I always thought Resident Evil was. Playing later entries, I've discovered it can be whatever the Capcom is chasing that year, but these first two remakes really nailed this perfect game loop that instantly made me fall in love as a new fan. If I had started with 0 or Resident Evil 1, I'm not so sure in 2026 as a first time player that sentiment would have been there. The total playtime to complete this game is only about roughly 6 to 9 hours, which isn't too bad. If RE9 is about the escalation of everything building to an end, RE3 Remake could be the last step bridging the past to the present.
Help him, he said.
I'm sure you boys didn't come all the way out here to roast marshmallows.
And then there's the darling, Resident Evil 4, whose remake might even be better than the original. I know that's probably the most blasphemous thing to say, but f*** you and grow up. This game is gas. This is the only entry in the series I had a small amount of experience with back in the day when visiting friends' houses. And I'll have to go back and truly understand which one I like better, but I know this is gonna for sure be a good time for new players.
That went well.
It continues on with Leon, who clearly isn't a rookie anymore, but a well-seasoned veteran, and you are tasked with finding the president's daughter, who has gone missing because I think Japan thought we loved our president back in the early 2000s. And what better way to experience the whiplash of tone change than with this game? That shift in tone is something you're going to have to get used to if you want to be an RE fan, because literally everything feels like a reboot every 2 or 3 games for the rest of the series. From haunted houses, to infected towns, to action-heavy Uncharted-like games, back to more haunted places with a touch of Grindhouse, to motherfucking Van Helsing. Resident Evil is the type of horror game that for almost every moment in the franchise can be summed up into the idea of, this is a plausible enemy type created and conjured by the misleadings of science. The horror of Biohazard. There's never really ghost stories or a true quote-unquote haunting, but an overwhelming dose of the organic. Even if Resident Evil 7 is almost beat for beat the same opening as Silent Hill 2, and it almost does kind of do a haunting thing on that ship section, but that's neither here nor there. That's what's so fun about these games. The idea that no matter what confrontation you find yourself in, if you've got a shotgun and a will to keep going, you're gonna make it out okay. It's that classic video game logic of the need for a resolve of progression. Does it make sense that a single knife can stop an entire chainsaw from cutting you in half? No, that's not what this game is. Don't think about it for too long and just super kick everyone into the fucking ground. Even grandma. RE4 in the remake definitely evolves, but without losing its horror identity for the most part. And yeah, it's more action heavy, but it's deliberate action and stands the test of time in the original and in the remake. Pretty much every third-person action shooter game you've ever played was inspired and built off the foundation that RE4 created. But can someone please explain to me what the f*** this knife fight is?
Not good.
Oh my god. There are a couple of these quality of life changes to this game that kind of take me out, and the biggest one has got to be the merchant. At first I didn't really like this change, if I'm being honest. The idea of Leon collecting currency and treasures off the corpses he just killed just to spend the money on items for his mission he was already on before entering the island. Every moment the merchant appears or his shop would somehow generate right in the middle of a war zone, it kind of took me out of the game for a little bit. Here was a safe room that felt like it ruined every bit of tension the game had been building up to, but by the end, I really needed that purple draped f***er to make it through how often that knife breaks. And yes, I did rocket launcher this boss in one hit. I don't even care. If the game is going to sell me fun toys, why am I not allowed to play with them? I do think this idea was better executed in RE8 Village just because the Duke does seem to not only be helpful narratively, but actually felt like an organic piece of the story being told. But it is something I just had to get over in a game series that allows you to inventory box teleport items from any section of the map. And the map design is fantastic and builds off the idea that was well established in RE2. The idea of this hub world you're always working on, chipping away at the puzzles that unlock the lake, open up the castles, you're just constantly moving to a new location that opens a bunch of new ideas. That same core game loop is very distinct in the design of this game without getting stale, and it's something I can still recognize them using still in the newer entries. This remake is especially important because it feels like the blueprint for modern Resident Evil going forward, and how diverse the stories can be if we follow the core principles. The tone of RE4 balances horror and action in a way that feels like a perfect time capsule for the early 2000s, and the remake really preserves that feeling for me while looking absolutely stunning. The total playtime can run 12 to 13 hours just depending on how much of a completionist you are or what difficulty. But if RE9 builds on everything Capcom has learned, the first-person horror, third-person action, psychological tension, and large memorable environments, RE4 Remake is the proof that all of those elements can coexist and succeed.
Come on. Let's go home.
So yeah, that's my list, which in total, if time is a factor, by whenever you do come across this video, this could take anywhere between 30 to 60 hours to fully experience. Absolutely, I think it's important to play the 2 newer titles with Ethan Winters, or at the very least Leon and Chris's campaigns in RE6, but that is a whole other video. The only thing I was trying to accomplish with this was getting people in, get a taste for this series, and the bloody good time it can be when you finally sink your teeth in. If you're a veteran of the franchise and have anything else to offer new fans, I invite you to leave some feedback in the comments, not just for them, but for me. Let's not gatekeep from a standpoint of fandom that branches several decades at this point. We only have so much time, and none of us are getting any younger.
Oh! What did I just say?
I already know there's some joyless who scoured the Resident Evil wiki that will tell me everything I'm saying in this video is absolute dog shit, and I should never make a video again. But you know, we all don't have time to memorize every memo. I'm here to shoot some zombies, or fight whatever bioweapon nasty motherfucker's Umbrella has cooked up next. Ultimately, the Resident Evil remakes of 2, 3, and 4 strike a rare balance that few franchises manage to achieve these days. They honor the legacy of the originals while fully embracing modern design and controls that feel progressive. And I know all the Halo Sprint people are coming for me already, but the world has moved on, like it or not. The old games are still there for those who prefer them. Some people just want to tank control their horror games because so many great titles are still stuck in that presentation. Some of the best, if I'm being honest. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Silent Hill fan and know how effective that older, static camera movement can be in creating fear for a player, but we're talking about only a few weeks left before Requiem releases. Because the series is at its best when you're not a superhero that can backflip out of anything. The most satisfying way to understand where Resident Evil came from is through the eyes of a rookie. Thank you guys for watching. Do me a favor, leave a comment, a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Now let's just hope this new game isn't gonna suck.